Deadpool and Wolverine has been out for about 2 weeks now. So I think it's finally time that I share my X-Men movie rankings with you. And I bet all of you can guess which movie will be the bottom one. At the bottom, I have Dark Phoenix or X-Men Dark Phoenix. This movie really is the weakest of all of them. The train scene was pretty cool, but it wasn't enough to save this movie and to make it great. Maybe a Wolverine cameo could have helped. At number 13, I have the first X-Men spin-off, X-Men Origins Wolverine. This movie didn't age well, and when it came out, it wasn't good at all. I mean, the performances by Liev Schreiber and Hugh Jackman were amazing. They are fantastic as Sabretooth and Wolverine, but it's just not enough to make this movie great. At number 12, I have the New Mutants. Now, this movie has been overhated. I actually think it's a really, really good movie. There are some issues with the editing, and I do think it should have been a little longer. We should have explored these characters a little more. But Anya Taylor Joy as Magic is just simply magic. Next up, I have X Men The Last Stand. This is the first X Men movie that I actually got to watch in cinemas, and at the time I thought it was brilliant. But after a few rewatches, I now know why it received so much criticism. The movie isn't perfect, and they shouldn't have killed off all those characters. It really set the franchise up for disaster. Luckily, it didn't end there. Next up, I have X Men Apocalypse. There was high hope for this movie, but unfortunately, it just didn't turn out the way we thought it would. Oscar Isaac probably wasn't the best guy for Apocalypse. I think they should have gone for a CGI character to make him a little bit more imposing, a little larger, like Deadpool 2 did with Juggernaut. And I do think the casting of the new X Men was pretty spot on. I do enjoy Nightcrawler, and I do think that Ty Sheridan could have been a good Cyclops, but unfortunately, the movie just wasn't good enough. And the only great thing about this movie is the Weapon X scene. Wolverine just totally kills it. Hugh Jackman is amazing in that scene. That one scene makes this movie awesome. And also the Quicksilver scene. Next up, I have the Wolverine. Now, this movie's first two acts were brilliant. I mean, it was a character piece. It really gave you a different side of Wolverine. Hugh Jackman was probably almost at his best in this movie, but the last act just didn't feel like it belonged in this movie. It just didn't flow well, and that's why this movie is a little lower than some of the other X-Men movies. And then I have the X-Men or X-Men, the first movie in this whole franchise, the movie that started it all, the movie that probably in a way also jump-started the MCU. This movie was fantastic. It was a great look at these characters. Unfortunately, they made too many changes from the comics and the X-Men animated show, and it made it a lot different than what we were used to, but it was still a brilliant movie, and I get why they made the changes to appeal to a wider audience. And this movie worked so Deadpool and Wolverine could run. And after that, I have X-Men First Class. This was a really, really cool reboot with Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy being incredible as the leads in this movie. It also reset the timeline to give us a better X-Men team, if I can put it that way. And that small Wolverine cameo will always live rent free in my mind. After that, I have Deadpool 2. Now, Deadpool 2 is a big step down from the first one, but it's not a bad movie at all. I still love this movie. I think Cable and Juggernaut are fantastic, and they definitely belong in this movie. The villain wasn't quite remarkable, but once again, Deadpool was amazing. Ryan Reynolds was born to play this role. And at number five, yes, this is now my top five. At number five, I have the first Deadpool. Deadpool just changed the way we viewed superheroes. It started a new era of superhero movies and TV shows. I think it's the inspiration behind shows like Invincible and The Umbrella Academy, The Boys, because it took a leap that other movies weren't willing to take, other comic book movies, and it was just fantastic. Ryan Reynolds is the Deadpool we needed, and it definitely put a sweet taste in our mouths after seeing Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins Wolverine. At number four, I have X2, which can be called one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. All the performances were just brilliant, but Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler was just wow. He is amazing. He was born to play that role, and everything about this movie is just almost perfection. It's a masterpiece in its own right, and it's one of the X-Men movies that I've actually rewatched a couple of times, and every time it just opens my eyes to what an amazing superhero movie can be like. At number three, I have X-Men Days of Future Past. This one also changed the game. That Quicksilver scene was just something else. This is how you can portray a speedster in a movie and still make it look cool. Not just a guy running in one place, but that actual movement, the way it's shot in slow mo actually works for this scene. It's just so beautiful. The whole movie itself, the message of this movie is fantastic, and it's an important movie to me. It's one of the movies that made me really feel like being who I am today, to be the movie guy, to talk about movies. It's a movie that inspired me and a movie that I will love until the end of days. And number two, I know a lot of people might not agree with this. Maybe it's the nostalgia, maybe it's because it's still new, but at number two, I have Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, people might say this isn't the best Wolverine movie or the best Deadpool movie, but in my opinion, it's the best team up movie in the whole X Men franchise. It is fantastic from start to finish, and maybe it's because of all the cameos. I mean, I love Blade, and seeing Blade again in the MCU this time was just so good. And the fight scenes were amazing. It didn't have all these high stakes, even though the stakes were probably high because it's the end of a universe, but they still carried out beautifully, and I really love this movie. And then number one is the most perfect superhero movie of all time, Logan. This is also one of Hugh Jackman's best acting performances of all time. Sir Patrick Stewart was brilliant. Everyone else in this film was just amazing. Daphne Keene's introduction as X-23 was wonderful. And I just can't stop talking about this movie. I love this movie. I've watched it probably more than any other superhero movie except for Thor Ragnarok. And I am gonna rewatch it soon because this movie it's just so beautiful. It gives you a different side of the X-Men. It gives you a different side of what the superhero movie can be. It's a total different genre from most superhero movies, and I highly recommend it. So yeah, that's my ranking for all the X-Men movies. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you will rank the X-Men movies and what you are looking forward to seeing in the MCU regarding the mutants and the X-Men or any of the former Fox properties or IPs that belongs to Marvel but were under the Fox banner, like the Fantastic Four and Daredevil, because I am excited for Daredevil Born Again, or Elektra, and even the Blade movie. Let me know what you are excited to see next.